Hey everyone, welcome to another edition of the Weekend Bullet. My name is Paul Lathrop. I am the Deputy Director of New Media for the Second Amendment Foundation. Joining me this weekend to talk about the stories that happened this week is on my left, Brooke Cheney. She is, well, today, and I got to show this to you. Today she is Goddess of the Gun, also the proprietor of a Great Start shooting school. And you're going to see her on her own show. As soon as we wrap up here, she goes live with her suicide prevention show every Saturday night. Also joining me on my right side, Patrick Collins. Patrick is a common person, often comments on the show here. Also, he is the proprietor of thegunfood.com. Let me get him solo on the screen. I've got it written out in .com, but please do go visit him if you have any needs for freedom seeds. Patrick can help you out. And speaking of helping out, why don't we go ahead and talk just a little bit today, guys, about 2 weeks ago, Patrick and I were in Detroit. Brooke, a year ago this past 2 weeks ago, you and I and Patrick were in Detroit. Patrick, how did you think this year went? I think it went phenomenally well.
You know, success can be measured in many ways, and as I had mentioned to Rick before, he is making a true impact to all the ladies there in Detroit. Right. When you think about it, 65 to 70% of those ladies there, they're brand new shooters. They've never seen a gun, or they've had a negative exposure to a firearm. And Rick is really putting a positive spin on the very activity that we all love and dear.
Yeah, absolutely. Brooke, you weren't there this year. You had some scheduling conflicts, but you have been there. Tell us about your experience there, and you are going to be coming back, right?
Yes. Like I was telling you before we came online, I didn't realize how much I would miss it. Now, some people, like Paul, travel all over the country all year long to all of these different gun events. And the event that we're talking about is this gentleman, Rick Ector, is helping women in the Detroit area learn how to shoot firearms safely and efficiently, and it's amazing. It's a free event, and there's nothing better than giving back to the community. So for me to fly out to Detroit so I could teach ladies for free, I never knew what an amazing blessing it would be. And I was looking at my phone because I have all of these pictures and little interviews from last year, and the excitement in these ladies, or even while they're just standing in line, having this opportunity to go shoot, do something that used to scare them. So I will not miss it again if it's at all possible. And every year, Rick has a goal of, reaching out to at least 1,000 women in a weekend. We're teaching on Saturday and Sunday, and that's it. And he's always got whatever the number is, next year is going to be a little bit higher. And there are instructors from all over the country that go do this. So it's also awesome for networking and getting to meet people from all over the place. So I don't know, is that enough, Paul?
Yeah, well, and what I find is every year that I've been there, I get to pick up. I love teaching new people to shoot, and I get to pick up this person's doing this a little bit different with the. How is for example, how is Rob Morse, who I happen to be right next to this year? How's Rob Morse handling this? And I get to watch him for a few seconds while he does his thing while I'm waiting for another student to come in. It's beneficial for the instructors as well.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah. One of the things I always mention, especially for first-time instructors that attend this event, is just pretend like you're in an elevator and you need to teach someone super fast how to shoot a firearm, or at least how to get familiar with a firearm in a safe environment. And that's basically what this event is.
Absolutely. Well, we're 5 minutes into the show, and we've got a lot to talk about. And just heads up, everybody, we're going to be out a little bit early tonight because I want Brooke to start her show on time. So we're going to be out a little bit early tonight, but I want to get as much news of the week as we can in. And there is a lot of news. The first two stories we have happen to deal with the son of the current occupant of the Oval Office. Hunter Biden, Attorney General elevates Hunter Biden prosecutor to special counsel. This is a story off MSN. Going down to the middle of the story here, prosecutors also wrote in court filings they do intend to drop misdemeanor charges against Hunter Biden in Delaware and instead bring them in California and Washington, D.C., the venues where prosecutors say the alleged misconduct occurred. And is further in the story yet, since the time of Hunter Biden's not guilty plea, the parties have engaged in further plea negotiations but are at an impasse. The government now believes that the case will not resolve short of a trial. Now that the parties are at an impasse, a trial is in order, they wrote. The venue must be proper for each count of an indictment, and the judge gave Hunter Biden until Monday to respond to the motion from the United States to vacate the court's briefing order. So what was formerly a prosecutor in Delaware is now a special prosecutor. I don't know if that means he rides a short bus for prosecutors but no, he's now a special prosecutor. And I guess what that means in legal terms, and I was really hoping Greg could be here tonight because I would ask him, what extra does that give him? But I do know it gives him the ability to file charges anywhere in the federal court system, not just in the district that covers Delaware. Brooke or Patrick, do you want to chime in on this?
Yeah, I mean, I could definitely jump in here. If you don't want to, Brooke, it's fine. But let me tell you what. A gross abuse of power and an atrocity to the American justice system right here. And it is really infuriating me that just because he is a political son, the justice system is not going to hold him accountable for all the crimes that he's committed. I mean, I don't really have news on my TV or anything like that. I don't watch, the news or any type of networks per se. But I have seen pictures that have been confirmed of him with firearms, him with illegal money handling, and him with a lot of drugs. And we all know what those questions are on the 4473. He should not. He should not be allowed to have a firearm at minimum. Not to mention all of the laws that we're talking about that he has broken.
Well, maybe they're confused and think things from Connecticut, because here in Connecticut, you can break all of the gun laws, and in Connecticut, they drop 83% of the gun laws that are ever brought forward. So it could be a little bit of that. Around here, we get a lot of soft on crime, regardless of whether you're a president's son or not. So around here, I definitely find that the good people who follow the laws, it doesn't make a difference. If you're someone who breaks the laws, it's like, those don't really matter. We just have them there in case we want to use them, but we don't have to actually use them.
One of the dangers of today's legal environment, and I'm not going to call it a justice system because we do not have a justice system, but one of the dangers of the legal system we have now is they can charge you with so many crimes that, if you're looking, and I'm going to speak from personal experience here, if you're up against 55 years in prison, 5 years doesn't sound so bad. And that's what these laws are all, in my opinion, intended to do, is if you get caught for jaywalking, and they can shove so many more charges onto you that pleading to one or two of those doesn't look so bad.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's just sad.
And the people who have the money for them, the people who have the money for the lawyers have the good lawyers, and the people who don't are up to the public defenders. And people don't understand how bad it really is. We were just talking about this today in my class. So many people are like, oh, so what if we have background checks? I don't have anything to hide. And I had someone in another class who was saying, no. If a police officer is following you long enough, they will find a taillight out. They will find a reason that they can pull you over. Because we have so many laws. And like Paul was just saying, it's like, when you have a ton of them, let's charge you with 1,000 of them oh, and then you're going to whittle that down to about 10. So it looks like you're not getting as much trouble as you started with. All right, Patrick, your turn. I'll be quiet now.
Oh, that's great, and I'll definitely add on to it. The biggest problem for me, especially is the drugs. Regardless if he may or may not have left the White House, which we know a bag or two has been discovered. Regardless of that situation, there are photographs of him wherever he was at. A lot of drug use and drug abuse in the photographs, and he is technically a gun owner. So we can't allow that to happen here. I mean, we are going to be all good, law-abiding citizens, or not. And in his case, I don't.
Let me get some comments in here real quick. They're starting to roll in. Carrie Ann Auclair, who, by the way, is sometimes on the Polite Society podcast. She's one of the people that steps in and helps me on the Polite Society podcast. She's watching tonight, and she chimed in. She said, "Yep," and they let the criminals back out on the street, and that's the whole thing lately. And this is horrible, awful in the Chicago area. Is this cashless bail system, or the making things equal? Well, you know what? The reason bail is set the way it is, the worse the crime, the higher the bail, the less chance this person is going to get out. Well, unfortunately, the people on the lowest economic strata that can least afford a high bail are predominantly the ones that commit the high bail crime. So it's not their utopia is not going to work.
We definitely have that same problem here in Connecticut as well, without a doubt. And we don't call it cashless bail, but it's almost like there is no bail, is what it really seems to turn into.
Yeah, Warsaw Patriot says our justice system is also corrupt with people in power of certain individuals. Oh yeah, well, and you look, if this were, and let's just be real honest, if this were Hunter Trump or Hunter DeSantis, this person would be under the jail. He would not be in jail. They would have planted him there more than permanently. And going specifically to the cashless bail, or whatever Chicago calls it, Warsaw Patriot says you can thank Kim Fox and Johnson in Chicago. And one thing I'll say, going back to the beginning of the show, I'm really glad Rick Ector is in Detroit and not in Chicago, because I don't know that I could bring myself to spend a weekend in Chicago helping people. Maybe I could, but Chicago doesn't recognize a South Dakota permit to carry, and Michigan does. So,
yeah. Something about those cities. Somehow the cities have it backwards. I had a family member once say, she's like, that we were talking about off topic, but we were talking about the electoral college, and she's like, no, we should get rid of that and have a popular vote. And I said, oh, but if we do that, then like 5 cities run the entire world, entire United States.
Oh yeah.
She's like, oh, that's good because all the smart people live in the city. And I'm like, and they still have homeless. And they still have crime, but okay.
Well, and where was this person from that you were talking? Let me guess, they were in one of the major metropolitan areas.
Maybe L.A.
Maybe L.A. Okay.
Yeah.
Rules for me, but not for thee. There we go. The next story, directly related, a federal appeals court on Wednesday ruled that a decades-old law prohibiting users of illegal drugs from owning firearms was unconstitutional as applied to the case of a marijuana user, the latest fallout from a U.S. Supreme Court ruling last year that expanded gun rights. And I'm going to stop right there, because the Bruin ruling, which is the ruling they're referring to, did not expand gun rights. It only restored them. A three-judge panel of the New Orleans-based Fifth Circuit Court of Appeals concluded the federal law violated a Mississippi man's right to keep and bear arms under the U.S. Constitution's Second Amendment. I'm going to skip down a little bit. The man, Patrick Daniels, had been convicted under that law after law enforcement found a pistol and a semi-automatic rifle in his vehicle during a traffic stop, along with marijuana cigarette butts. The DEA did not administer a drug test, though Daniels admitted he sometimes smoked marijuana, which federal law prohibits. He was sentenced to nearly 4 years in prison. U.S. Circuit Judge Jerry Smith, an appointee of former Republican President Ronald Reagan, said the decision meant the statute was invalid as applied to Daniels. In short, and I love this because we're going right back to the Bruin decision. In short, our history and tradition may support some limits on an intoxicated person's right to carry a weapon, but it does not justify disarming a sober citizen based exclusively on his past drug usage. That is awesome. Now, it does not bode well for the Hunter Biden case because they didn't catch Hunter stoned while he had the firearm on him, but by and large, I think this is good for the Second Amendment. Again, either one of you, Patrick or Brooke, you want to comment?
Go ahead, Brooke.
All right. So, the federal law prohibiting marijuana really messes up because we have all the state laws that have made marijuana legal. And so pretty much any gun owner who lives in a state that allows marijuana is committing a federal level felony if they buy a firearm. But they're never going to go to jail because, well, if Hunter Biden doesn't have to go to jail, then none of us should have to go to jail, right? So yeah, it's crazy. The laws don't make sense. I actually always tell my students, I'm not a law-abiding gun owner because I can't possibly know all of the laws. So I do my best to be a responsible, non-violent gun owner, and I work on anti-violence programs because, yes, we should have our rights. And the people who are anti-gun don't understand that they're not anti-violence.
Right.
So the laws, they're so complex. Oh, wait, I was just teaching today. This is a list of just some of the laws, and I'm sorry it's so blurry, but this is a legal size paper with lots and lots of lines of all of the Connecticut laws. And this was before we had another bill pass this past legislative session. So more laws have never managed to make less crime.
No.
So
more laws make more criminals is all they do.
Yes, and all of us here on the screen end up being criminals for doing the same stuff we did yesterday that we're going to do tomorrow, but then they change the law, so we don't know that we're doing something. So, all right, Patrick, your turn.
Well, that's very true, and it's funny because I've never seen the A-list printed out the way you had it there, but if you look at the federal laws and all of us in entirety, especially against firearm ownership or create against the legal law-abiding citizens, there are 23,000 laws in the books. If they really think that an additional law is going to help prevent crimes from happening, or at least deter it, I think they need a reality check, because that's not what happens when you create laws. As you said, it creates criminals out of people who are good at one point in time. And it's just sad to see that, we have to go back now and really look at our laws, because laws are in some cases.
Let me get a couple comments in here. I want to start off with this one from C&T Designs and Arms. No gun rights have been expanded. They've been shrinking since Jim Crow gun laws. Coop, you're absolutely right in that. And by the way, Coop Cooper, the person that is C&T Designs and Arms, will be on the panel next Saturday night. I've got Coop and Dan Waz so far are going to be the two that join me. Not yet booked the third one. I'm going to reach out to Tony Simon and see if Tony can join us. But don't hold me to Tony Simon. I just got those two booked for sure. I want to get this one in. This is a great quote. Spartan 6 says, "The more corrupt the state, the more numerous the laws." Tacticus. And go into any lawyer's office, any lawyer that's been in practice for more than about 15 years, and go into their law library and just look at the enormous volumes of laws they have. And look, lawyers have to specialize. You cannot get a lawyer that is a good criminal lawyer and a good tax lawyer and a good corporate lawyer and a good family law lawyer. They don't exist. The attorneys have to, like doctors have to, they have to specialize so they don't have to know all of the laws. They just have to know their own little subset.
And it's hard enough to do that.
Yeah.
Because I have gun lawyers here in Connecticut, and it's like I know one lawyer that knows one specific piece of the law, and I have other lawyers who are also gun lawyers, but they know other parts of it. So just like getting your specialist who works on pinkies if you need an orthopedic surgeon, it's like you need to go find the guy who actually does 1,000 pinkies. The gun laws are so crazy here in Connecticut. The laws that we have, and this is why I don't say I'm a law-abiding gun owner, are so difficult to follow because they were written by people here in Connecticut that don't know anything about guns. And at the time, Sandy Hook, 2013, they wouldn't even talk to anyone who actually owns guns. So when we're having laws written by people who know nothing about guns, it makes it even harder for those of us trying to be law-abiding gun owners because we don't actually know what the heck they're talking about because they don't actually know what the heck they're talking about. So yeah, it's hard to be a law-abiding gun owner because there's too many of them. And Paul, if I disappear all of a sudden, we're having a spectacular thunderstorm, and it just means I lost internet.
Okay. Well, I've got buttons on my fingers over here, and buttons under my fingers that I can move around. And now that I've got that heads up, I can actually do some adjusting here behind the scenes as we talk about our next story, so that in case your screen does go blank, I can make an adjustment. But
Okay.
our next story, this is off KSLNewsRadio.com, out of Salt Lake City. Gun sales across the United States have been on the rise. A study from the, get this, New Jersey Gun Violence Research Center at Rutgers University claims sales to women and minorities are also increasing. The study seems to show these groups are purchasing weapons for self-defense. There's a big shock. Chris Bertram, retired deputy sheriff with the Unified Police Department, tells KSL News Radio that gun sales often increase when people feel insecure. I think, unfortunately, now is the time when certain people in certain areas, urban areas especially, may not feel as safe. Definitely, I saw that when I was on the job. He said we had people who were victims of crime, both violent crime and property crime, that didn't own a firearm. They would immediately talk about, I think I'm going to buy a firearm to feel safer. And then Clark Aposhian, and I've interviewed Clark, brilliant guy, great person that's fighting for our rights and helped get permitless carry through in Utah. Clark Aposhian, president of the Utah Shooting Sports Council, says he is seeing a lot of people seeking knowledge on how to use a firearm. I'm still teaching classes, perhaps not as many concealed carry gun classes, he said, but a lot of tactical training classes for people that have their firearms. While they don't keep specific records on groups who are buying firearms, a couple of gun stores along the Wasatch Front tell KSL News Radio they believe they have seen an increase in sales to minorities and women. Well, and I keep going back to the beginning of the show, guys, we were talking about in Detroit. I'm going to say the majority of I've got 2 years of experience to draw off of, so not as much as Rick Ector does, but I'm going to say about 60 to 70% of the women that attended this event were colored women, were black, and 100%, of course, were women, but and it's expanding every year in Detroit. I see women all the time here that are when guns come up in conversation. Oh, I just got this, or I'm thinking about getting that. I don't doubt at all that we are continuing to see more and more women and more minorities in new gun owners. Patrick, I've been throwing to Brooke all the time to start with. I'm kicking it to you this time first, man.
All right. Well, absolutely. I mean, as the general public starts to get educated on, hey, your first line of defense in not calling some number, some 3-digit number, and hoping in prayers and thoughts that they'll respond in time, I think folks are starting to realize that maybe I should take a proactive step in getting myself in a safe environment and maybe potentially even learning how to use these that you and I just use on a basis. There's a lot of, it's a growing industry of folks that are using these weapons and using these tools in a positive manner. I think eventually we're going to reach an equilibrium where criminal now will be outnumbered by folks that actually just want to live their lives normally. So, yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Brooke, you're among the minority. I mean, you're obviously a female.
I market towards females. There's that too.
What's your thoughts on the story, and have you seen an increase in women and minorities in your training?
So, I am out in the country in the corner of Connecticut, and yes, I have my Hispanic, Latinos, Black women come to me as well. And it's so funny because I get the teachers, and it's like they can't talk about what they're doing on the weekends because they're afraid of being shunned. And so I think there's a lot more female gun owners, regardless of the color of skin, that are out there that we probably don't know about because they don't want anyone else to know. Here in Connecticut, one of the pistol permit processes, your town can request a letter of recommendation. And I tell the ladies all the time, I'm like, listen, you deciding to use a firearm to save your life is your choice. You don't have to tell anyone else that you're doing it because it's for you, by you. And it's a personal choice. But I would say again, I market to women, so I would say 60 to 70% of my students are female. And so I get to see lots and lots of ladies all the time. And I always find it so funny because like, oh, you're a girl. I'm like, yes, I've been that way my entire life. But they're just so surprised that there's a female instructor. So.
Oh, they expect to see a knuckle-dragging Marine or something? Or
well, no, when they get here, they say they're so excited that they found me because I'm a female instructor. And they just feel happy that they have a female instructor. I say, listen, the guys like Paul and Patrick are perfectly fine and wonderful, and they're super happy to see you. But sometimes women just want to hang out with girls. So there is that. And that's why we have so many cool places like DC Project, Girl in a Gun, Well-Armed Women, Women of America, whatever it's called now. Carrie Ann, fix me. Sorry, I'm looking at the chat box. I'm like, whatever it's called.
Well, and there is a slight delay from when they type it to when I get it, but she just said, whoops, we need more female instructors. Let me go ahead and put that back so Patrick's still on the screen. And I agree.
Patrick, he didn't have the thunderstorm. I have the thunderstorm.
But yeah, and I'm going to go back to the beginning of my firearms journey many years ago. And the very first professional training I had from a professional firearms instructor was Kathy Jackson. I convinced her to come to Sioux Falls to teach a cornered cat class. I took part in that class, and I then later after knowing Kathy for a while, I convinced her that maybe I was thinking about training. She goes, we got to have you take the cornered cat instructor class. What I found out in the cornered cat instructor class is she has women's only classes, and the curriculum in the women's only classes, believe it or not, is the exact same curriculum as in the mixed classes. The only difference is women, when they're not around men, will occasionally talk about things that they won't talk about when they're around men. So,
bra holsters.
yeah, well. So, well, I agree. Carrie Ann said we. Let me get this one in here.
So as far as the more female instructors, I can say my last instructor course, because I'm an NRA training counselor as well, I had more women in it than men. I had 3 guys and 4 ladies. So I'm helping tip the scales in that at least. So.
There you go.
Another year or so, I will try to work on getting my USCCA training counselor thing. I don't know how that works. I'm new to that, but we will get more female instructors. Carrie Ann can do it too. I think she's a training counselor. I don't know. If she's not, she should be.
And she did. I just looked over. She did answer your question. The Armed Women of America is the phrase you were looking for.
Yes. Yeah. When people when organizations change their names, it drives me crazy because it takes me so long to remember the name in the first place. Like here in Connecticut, we have Department of Environmental Service Protection, and then they added another P, so it's DESPP. I have no idea what the second P is for.
The Department of Redundancy Department.
Well, as soon as it said PP, I'm like, oh, I'm 3 years old again, aren't I?
Let me get a few more comments in here quick. I'm going to put this one up first. I know we're focused on America, but also in Canada, they have a lot of armed women. Well, I'm working on possibly getting some people from Canada in on a bullet or a polite society in the near future. But as of right now, yeah, we are, and Second Amendment Foundation focuses on United States law, although they do have, and I do not remember the name of the organization, there is a sister organization to SAF that is very active in Europe on expanding the right of self-defense in Europe.
Last year I was in London. There were 2 shootings while I was there, like in a matter of 2 days. But they don't have guns there.
Yeah, they outlawed guns a long time.
Yeah. Yeah.
Carrie Ann Clare again. He was speaking when they ask questions not so much in front of men. And let me get this one in from Spartan 6. A man with a gun is a citizen. A man without a gun is a subject. That's from Representative Alan West. And, wow. Let me get this one in from CNT. We need AWWA, American Women with Attitude. And he says, or Armed Women with Attitude. So, all right, let's see here. Where are we at in show notes? I'm going to jump down a little bit. I want to talk about Illinois quick. This is off BearingArms.com, a Cam Edwards story. And I'm going to jump to the middle of the story here. The multiple legal challenges to Illinois' recently enacted ban on so-called assault weapons and large-capacity magazines are taking place in both federal and state court. And while we're waiting on a decision from the 7th Circuit Court of Appeals regarding the federal challenges, the state Supreme Court in Illinois has now released its own opinion in a case brought by Illinois Representative Dan Hopkins. To the surprise of few gun owners, the Democrat-controlled court reversed the lower court decision, finding the ban violated the equal protection and special legislation clauses of the state constitution, maintaining instead that the ban that went into effect earlier this year is perfectly acceptable under the state constitution. And to be quite clear, this was not a federal Second Amendment case that the Illinois Supreme Court was deciding. It was whether the legislature broke the rules in making this law, and they decided no, the state legislature did not break the law in making this law, and in my opinion, actually, yes, they did. But and believe it or not, guys, I think this is good news simply because it focuses attention on the 7th Circuit, and that when that decision comes down, that will get appealed up. Also, this can be appealed to the United States Supreme Court, where we have to wait for the Seventh Circuit to do their thing. So
it does make it hard. This whole patchwork of, all right, where are you? Where's the Supreme Court? Where's the? It's again, we were talking about the unconstitutionality of all of these laws, and to follow them from where they are to where they need to go, like Massachusetts. Carrie Ann's watching right now. Sorry, that was a large bolt of lightning outside my window. So if I go black, you know why. So it's like they can pass the unconstitutional laws, and they know it's going to take us years to fight it. It's cost millions of dollars to fight it. And this is the thing that people are like, how do they get away with it? I'm like, because we can't afford it. So for all of you who haven't yet, donate to the Second Amendment Foundation so they can help fight. All right, Patrick?
Yeah, and what's crazy about all of these, like, appeals and everything else, and we need to appeal anything that is degrading to our Second Amendment rights, but I just find it interesting that they're appealing it based on the constitutions that were written hundreds of years ago, but hundreds of years ago, the average citizen was allowed to have military-grade weapons, right? So this whole assault the assault weapon magazine ban, whatever you want to call it, with the 30-round magazine, whatever. It's all jargon, as they like to put it in the mainstream media. But all of those terms, it's like, how does this truly impact the daily citizen that is not committing murder? Because that's really what they're trying to prevent. They're trying to prevent.
Oh,
no.
Patrick, I think, froze up.
No! I'm like, my whole building just shook, and I'm like, okay.
Well, let's go ahead and continue, and hopefully Patrick unfreezes here in just a second. But let me get some comments in here. C&T Coop says, any judge that upholds such unconstitutional laws should be impeached and never allowed to hold office. Well, we agree on that, but I'm also a realist. That's not going to happen in the near future. Warsaw Patriot, I love this. Warsaw Patriot says, Paul Calkins copied and pasted Tom DeVore's arguments without any backing, and also JB, meaning JB Pritzker, the governor, paid off both two judges and $500,000 in bribes. I believe it was actually north of $1 million, wasn't it? Warsaw Patriot my memory says that the contributions to those re-elections campaigns for those 2 or 3 judges was over $1 million from Pritzker's campaign slush fund to these lawyers that were running for judge. That's kind of what my brain says.
Yeah, follow the money actually works generally. But so here's one of the things I found over the years. To Patrick's point, when he gets back to us, about they want to focus on preventing violence. Or sorry, they want to focus on preventing murders. And here's the thing. Murders are actually the smallest amount of gun crime that there is out there. I am a stats girl. I go to the FBI, Department of Justice, read their stuff. It's painful, but you can get the information when you have it in context. So let me give you a little bit of context why focusing on murders is going to be the least effective thing that we could ever do. There are roughly 250,000 violent crimes in America on average every year. If you look at a 10-year average. Of those 250,000 violent crimes, 10,000 of that are actual murders. 10,000. So, when you hear about the CDC saying 30,000 people died this year, 2 out of every 3 gun deaths are suicides. So if we're trying to stop violence and we're focusing on the smallest amount of it being murders, we're never going to make a difference if we're not looking at violence as a whole, 250,000 violent crimes every year. If we don't start preventing violence at the basis when kids are little, when teens are young and impressionable, and we work on our mental health stuff, and we're just never going to make any dent. And they're like, oh, no matter how much we do, we're not doing anything. I'm like, yes, because when you focus on the tiniest amount, we can't do anything. We're not going to make any headway ever. Everyone's like, oh, but that 250,000, that's everything, and we can't figure that out because it's mental health. And I'm like, and as long as we ignore it and don't talk about it, you're right. We're never going to be able to do anything about it. Did we get Patrick back yet?
No, not yet. And matter of fact, I'm going to jump over. I'm going to hit that button right there.
Hopefully he'll come back.
Yes, absolutely. Let me see here. I got a message from him saying he's trying to jump back in, but there may be a... Let me see if I can bring up... and it says he's connected. Let me... Patrick, are you there, Patrick? Yeah, now I can see him. I can see him moving around.
Now. He's not just frozen in space.
All right, let me get a couple comments in here real quick. First one, Carrie Ann says, "Oops, didn't hit that button." Now I got. Wow, Brooke, that storm is loud.
Yeah, I keep trying to mute as it's going, but I don't get them all. But it was crazy.
All right, and I get a couple here from Spartan 6. But to ban guns because criminals use them is to tell the innocent and law-abiding that their rights and liberties depend not on their own conduct, but the conduct of the guilty and the lawless. And then that also continues, and that the law will permit them to have only such rights and liberties as the lawless will allow. That's a quote from Jeffrey Snyder. And that's a great quote, by the way.
Summed up in a bumper sticker, it is, if you outlaw guns, only outlaws will have guns.
Yes.
One of my favorite bumper stickers of all time. And it really does sum up what happens. Like, I think we were talking about Florida before. Maybe it was another conversation. It's been a busy day. But in Florida, there's roughly 50% concealed carry. Is there still lawlessness in Florida? Of course there's still crime. But the smart criminals... know that they've got a 50-50 shot of coming across somebody who can defend themselves. And just the thought of the possibility of someone being able to defend themselves usually puts enough of a reason for a bad guy to stop and not do their violent crime. We're always going to have the criminally insane. We're always going to have the people that are just unreasonable. Unfortunately, again, talking about women, like today, one of my students, she has a, I don't want to say the word crazy, she has an aggressive ex-husband, and he is kind of stalking her a little bit here and there. So it's just like, as women, we really need to have our firearms. And when we get into like red flag laws and all that fun stuff, it's like, no, red flag laws can take my guns away. Because my stalker can just go ahead and say, oh, Brooke did something to make me mad, or she's going to hurt herself. And because I did suicide prevention Saturday, and I said, I'm not having a good day. And this is the thing that non-gun owners don't seem to understand. They're like, no, we need to take, it's so crazy, because someone also was talking about red flag, and they're just saying, it's not like you go in and take the knives and the ropes and the gasoline away. Those are also ways that people commit suicide. They only take the gun. So it's like, no, you need to take the person out of that situation and put them in a safe place. So.
Well, and we are getting really close to where we got to start wrapping things up, but I do need to, the story we are not going to get covered today is the John Crump thing. John Crump and one other YouTuber were threatened with a squash order from a assistant attorney general in I want to say it was Georgia. Basically what the assistant U.S. attorney general was saying was, look, you cannot, even though you got this document legally, you must destroy it. You cannot release it. And a whole bunch of YouTube people, and I'm going to call most of them journalists, people like Iraqi veteran 8888, Legally Armed America, Military Arms Channel, Active Self-Protection, and a lot of others filed an amicus brief, and it got the request for them to be silenced was dropped by rather hard by a federal judge, and they were not subject to an order to silence, to, you know, and I can't try to remember the name of the order, but they weren't silenced. And I want to say personally on this, I respect the heck out of John Crump. I use a lot of his material when I do the show every day. A lot of John Crump stuff makes it to you. And if what the prosecutor was alleging is, look, these aren't journalists, these are YouTube personalities. Guess what? YouTube personalities reach more than all the networks combined. I know one YouTube personality that reaches more people every day than MSNBC does. One guy. And that's of course would be John Correa of Active Self-Protection. And I think we are getting in here. Give me just a second here. Just sitting down. I'm going to go ahead and move to this shot right here because we have Greg Hopkins joining us.
Hello. We are being real established by my wife, who, unlike me, is a 21st century person. So good to see you all.
Well, Greg, thanks for showing up, and I know you've been trying all show long to get on. I wish you'd have been here from the beginning because we really could have used at least a former lawyer's perspective on some of the things we've been talking about.
Yes.
What I'm
my best to help.
What I'm currently looking at is the what we're currently talking about is the John Crump story, where the Assistant Attorney General was, and my brain is not working so well at this exact moment in time. She put what I would call a quash order, I think, or an order to silence him and one other YouTuber. They did not want them to release some information.
Oh.
And the order, when it got to the judge, was basically, my understanding is the order was mooted because the information that they had received was from the person, the pre-sentence investigation was from the person it was written about. The law that says, well, judges can't give this out, attorneys can't give this out, but it doesn't say anything about the press not being able to give it out.
That all has to do with the security of information for the benefit of the defendant when there's a sentencing in federal court, and but there is I'm trying to think. I don't think there's anything in the sentencing guidelines, anything like that, which would keep someone else from reporting it. It becomes, as soon as it's reported anyway, it becomes on a record, public record. But in any event, what this is it's an attempt by an assistant U.S. attorney to nuke the First Amendment. And if even the mainstream press would say that the purpose of the First Amendment is, first of all, to allow news organizations to let the public know, so the public is educated about the doings of government. And since that is the case, then just because a person is not connected with some major news organization or some recognized group does not prevent them from being able to broadcast news when it happens. So that this is concerning. It's good that the court shut the AUSA down, but it's part of the mindset we're looking at in the government, that we are supposed to we're just supposed to pay attention, and they'll spoon feed us what they want us to know, and that's not that's not America. It's not the Constitution.
Well, we are coming up very soon on when Brooke's got to get out of here. Brooke, I want to ask you real quick. We're gonna continue on with Greg and Patrick and I. Brooke, I want to ask you real quick, if you would, plug a Great Start Shooting School and plug what you're going to be doing in about 10 minutes.
All right. Yes, I was going to say, Paul, you've got it set up. You can just drop down to 3s again. So just because I'm leaving doesn't mean you
talk for a little bit, because I got to set that up.
All right. So a Great Start Shooting School is my firearms academy here in Connecticut. I do primarily one-on-one coaching. I am a firearms instructor, a competitive shooter, and absolutely Second Amendment advocate. But really and truly, I'm working on us to be anti-violent advocates, because that's what we need to do here in America. A Great Start Shooting School, I teach one-on-one, I teach getting into shooting sports, I help you become an NRA basic instructor. If you want to do it, I'll figure it out. And if I don't know it, I know someone who does. So one of my favorite things is, even if I can't serve you, I know a guy. So, 9 o'clock Eastern, I do suicide prevention Saturday night. I started back in 2018. I popped on, I'm like, we should talk about this 2 out of every 3 gun deaths being suicide. And we should talk about mental health. My little thing is 15, 20 minutes. And it's sometimes resources on somewhere you can call, like 211. Sometimes it's actual exercises you can do. I will get you to try stuff. And just things to learn about mental health in general. Make it a little bit easier. And if you've ever been suicidal, depressed, anxious, it also helps to know that you're not alone. I was suicidal as a teen, which allows me to talk on this from a different perspective. So that's what I'm doing in 8 minutes from now.
All right, very cool. And Brooke, we will go ahead and let you go. I do want to thank you for joining us tonight and
Friday.
making it through the thunderstorm to join us uninterrupted. That's very cool. And we will be seeing you this coming Friday on Training Friday for the Bullet.
Absolutely.
So,
well, Patrick, I promise I'll see you next year in Detroit in person. All right, bye guys. Paul kicked me out. I don't know how to close this thing.
Close your browser window
Close
and
my browser window.
There we go. Oh,
Get in there.
Shoot! And somehow I got Greg in there, kind of funky twice. Let me see if I can't. That's why.
Split personality.
There we go. I think I've got it right. There we go. That's better. Gentlemen, the other. Well, I want to go back and Greg, I really wanted to talk with you a little bit about the first. I want to get your expertise on the first story we had, and that's the Hunter Biden thing. There was a new the Delaware prosecutor, federal prosecutor that was handling this, has now been named special prosecutor. My understanding is that what that does is it increases his powers to bring charges anywhere in the United States in the federal system. There's 2 ways I think this could go. It could be bad news for Hunter Biden in that he's going to have to be dancing across the country, or it could be good news for Hunter Biden in that a judge just said no to a sweetheart deal, but now he could get 3 judges to say yes to super sweetheart deals and be in less trouble than he was to start with. What's your take, man?
Oh, there's a whole lot to this. One of the things is that there's the speedy trial rule, which the feds have, and it's supposed to be a shield to the defendant. But what it is actually a sword for the prosecutor, that if the trial, if you only have 30 days before trial comes up, then usually, very often, you don't have a chance as a defense attorney to put together a good case and do all the research you need to do in evidence examination. In this guy, David Weiss, he has gone the opposite way. He has spent 4 years and $10 million of taxpayers' money supposedly investigating Hunter. And this guy he's simply slow rolling the whole game in order to give Hunter and Biden enough time to get to 2024. And and then this motion he's made to move the venue, that's what it's called, motion to reset venue, is completely self-serving. It's what in law is called the forum shopping. And he wants to take Hunter's trials to D.C. and to California, where he's assured of a mindlessly Democratic jury who will exonerate Hunter, so they can say, oh, see, there was nothing ever there in the first place. The jury said so. So there's a lot of ways that he's already been favorable to Hunter and Biden by not vigorously prosecuting this and insisting on the 30-day rule. Of course, there's some cases like this that there's no way you're going to get to trial in 30 days. There's too much evidence for both sides to go over. But 4 years is inexcusable, and especially on some relative simplicity of the charges. Another thing that Weiss coming in as special prosecutor is the Democrats hope that that's going to somehow stymie the congressional investigation led by James Comer of Kentucky in the House by saying, well, we have these witnesses under subpoena, so you can't have them because they'll release the information that we want to release, and we don't want released until our trial, and so on. So it's basically a gigantic a stall tactic and blocking tactic on the investigation powers of the Congress. So it's our U.S. Attorney General. I only shudder if he is the Attorney General and not a Supreme Court Justice, as Obama would have been. And the guy is obviously so partisan that he eventually puts on his left shoe before he puts on his right, just to prove his right foot is less valuable, I guess. So anyway.
All right. Well, we are right up on the top of the hour. And Warsaw Patriot and other, we're getting comments. We would like Greg to talk about this. We'd like Greg to talk about that. We just don't have the time, and I'm sorry.
Well, I'm sorry with this Wi-Fi screw up, but with these big companies, Patrick, I guess you had some of the same problems. So.
Oh, and we lost Patrick's audio.
There we go. How about now?
Okay. There we are.
Okay. Yeah, the power flickered, and it dropped everything, so I had to jump back on. But I'm back.
All right. Well, what I want to do now, if you don't mind, Patrick, I want you to plug thegunfood.com and anything else you feel like promoting tonight, man.
All right. Well, there is a very important bill coming up in Massachusetts, my home state, HB 4420, I believe it is, or HD 4420. Basically, it makes lawful firearms owners into criminals, and that's just a summary of it. But I'll be up there in Massachusetts speaking at the big rally that Goal is having up there, which is the local grassroots Gun Owners Action League. I'm looking forward to that. Please come out, especially friends and family from Massachusetts, because this is the other side of what I do. But anyhow, let's talk about the gun food real quick. Gunfood.com. Purchase your ammo from the gunfood.com. That's my company here, and we have all the ammo in stock that you ever need. Everything ships insured, so we're here for you.
All right. And Greg, I know we've only had you for a few minutes, but please, if you would, plug your book, A Time to Kill.
Okay. My book is A Time to Kill, the Bible and Self-Defense. I taught Bible for 40 years, and I bring my Christian gun nut lawyer perspective to it and a trained historian so that we look at the Bible with everything in context and conclude that God commands us to defend the innocent and that he blesses us for doing so. Jesus never taught pacifism, and I demonstrate that in the book. I explain live by the sword, die by the sword, and turn the other cheek in their biblical contexts. And it also has 3 chapters about the Bible and the death penalty as well. So I think it would help if you know anyone who has PTSD from military or law enforcement service. There are 3 chapters on Jesus in the military. He never told anyone to quit the Army, and he knows the difference between murder and killing in self-defense, in combat, or in law enforcement. So I encourage you to get this book if you're a Christian or Jew who is interested or troubled as to what side to come down on as far as God approving of us defending ourselves. It's on Amazon, and I thank you very much. Just buy one for yourself, one for your preacher, one for your Sunday school teacher, one for the church library. That's all I ask.
Well, and don't forget one for the soldier that you know.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
All right. We are over time. I got to get out of here. And besides, my wife is waiting for me. We've got family in town. They're waiting for a motorcycle ride, so we got to go help with that. We're stepping out of here, folks. Thank you for watching. Everybody who's commented, thank you for commenting. Please do come join us next week. Same bat time, same bat channel. Until then, everybody.